Today we're going to talk about something from 18th century Japan that I promise you has a shockingly relevant message for our crazy modern lives. We're diving into a book called the Kojiki-den, and its pretty radical idea about reclaiming your naked heart. So let me just start by asking you a question. Are you ever just exhausted? And I don't mean just tired from a long day, I mean mentally fried from the constant pressure to be logical, to be efficient, to have a rational explanation for everything you do. You know, it really feels like we're living in this age of constant justification. Every choice has to be backed up by a spreadsheet. Every feeling has to have a reason. And this obsession with logic, well, it doesn't leave much room for just raw human emotion. But what if the answer to all this pressure came from a really unexpected place? Like, say, 18th century Japan. Yeah, we're going back in time. We're going to meet a man named Motoori Norinaga, whose lifelong quest, all 35 years of it, might just hold a solution to our very modern problem. Okay, so picture this. It's the Edo period in Japan. Things are peaceful, sure, but the entire world of ideas is dominated by Confucianism, which came over from China. Now, this philosophy is all about rigid logic, a strict moral code, and social hierarchy. And because of that, the more natural, spontaneous Japanese ways of thinking, they were kind of looked down on, seen as primitive, something you had to suppress. And right in the middle of all this, our hero appears. And he's not some powerful lord or a high-ranking priest. No, Motoori Norinaga was a town doctor. A guy who, after a full day of seeing patients, would go home and start this secret, almost obsessive, personal mission. And what was that mission? Well, for 35 years, Norinaga spent his nights trying to decipher the Kojiki. This was Japan's oldest, most mysterious book, written in an ancient script almost nobody could read anymore. I mean, just think about that kind of dedication. 3.5 decades working on one single thing. But you see, this was way more than just a translation project. For him, it was like an archaeological dig into the soul of his own culture. He was convinced that buried underneath all those layers of foreign, logical ideas was what he called the original Japanese heart, this genuine, authentic way of feeling that he felt had been lost. So, after all that time, all that work, what did he actually find? Well, he uncovered what he saw as this fundamental conflict deep inside the human spirit, a kind of battle between two completely different ways of being in the world. He basically laid out these two opposing forces. On one side, you have what he called Magokoro, or the Chinese mind. Now, to be super clear, this was not a critique of China, it was a critique of a mindset, that rigid, logical armor we all put on to justify everything. It's that little voice in your head that says, I take care of my parents because it's my moral duty. But then he contrasted that with Magokoro, the true heart. This is our real, naked, sincere self. It's our spontaneous feelings. It's the voice that says, I take care of my parents simply because I love them. See the difference? And out of all this research, Norinaga basically distilled it down to 3 key principles for getting back to that true heart. First, he said, we are creatures of emotion before we are creatures of logic. Second, the words we use, our language, actually shapes how we see the world. And third, and this one is huge, we have to accept that life is often irrational and even tragic, and that learning to embrace that is what it means to be fully human. And the best part is, Norinaga found his ultimate proof for all this not in some dense abstract theory, but in the ancient stories of Japan's own gods. He zoomed in on this foundational myth, the story of the creator gods, Izanagi and his wife Izanami. And their story, it starts with all this love and creation, but it takes a turn, and it becomes a tragedy. So what happens is Izanami dies, giving birth to the fire god. And her husband, the great creator god Izanagi, he doesn't just stoically accept his fate. No way. He completely breaks down. He weeps, he wails, and he cries out these incredibly raw, heartbreaking words. He's not being logical. He's not being dutiful. He is just completely overwhelmed by pure, unfiltered grief. And for Norinaga, this was everything. His big insight was, look, if even the creator gods feel sorrow this deeply, then who are we, as just mortals, to think that our grief is some kind of weakness? He argued that these powerful emotions, they aren't flaws we need to engineer out of ourselves. They are a divine, necessary part of being alive. Okay, so an ancient myth is one thing, but how does all this wisdom from the 18th century actually help us with our 21st century burnout? Well, this is where it all clicks into place. What Norinaga did was offer a powerful antidote to what can feel like the tyranny of reason we all live under. He basically gives us permission to stop having to justify our own humanity all the time. And the message is so beautifully simple and liberating. It's okay to be sad and just sit with that sadness without immediately trying to fix it. It's okay to trust your gut on something, even if you don't have a 10-point list of reasons why. His work really gives us permission to just be human in all our messy glory without needing an excuse. And I think this is really Norinaga's ultimate gift to us. That feeling of vulnerability. You know, that messy, irrational, emotional part of yourself? He's telling us that's not a bug, that's the core feature. That is the very thing that proves you're human. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Norinaga talked about taking off that artificial armor of logic and reason. So my question to you is, what piece of that armor, that need to always be productive, to be logical, to explain yourself, what piece can you let go of today, even if it's just for a moment?